Hello and welcome to the curriculum preview for the third 6 weeks. This curriculum preview will focus on deeper thinking and planning to focus on deeply learning our standards. In this curriculum PLC, you will deconstruct, unpack, and gain a deeper understanding of the standards to plan for student success. I'm Felicia Wilkerson, the Elementary ELAR and Social Studies Coordinator. For this curriculum PLC, you will need your PLC for the Reading PLC document, copies of the Content Builder document, and your Unit 3 IFD. Please take a moment to review your assessment blueprints. Please note the number of instructional days, as well as the assessment posting date and the assessment date. To review our learning targets, study the heat map data to identify hotspots, study the standards, that is, deconstruct them, unpack them, and understand them, and collaborate with your team to discuss instructional implications and evidences of learning using the standards. By the end of the curriculum preview, you will be able to use the standards to plan for instruction, use high-interest resources to plan for student learning with expository text, plan for evidences of learning that are aligned with the standards that will allow students to analyze, make inferences, and draw conclusions about expository text and provide text evidence to support their understanding, and align curriculum, instruction, and assessments in order for students to master the standards. We understand that our curriculum or our state standards and the unit and state assessments are aligned. Therefore, we must align our instruction with the curriculum and assessments so that student learning can occur at the depth and the complexity of the state standards. Many teachers believe they understand their standards, but the truth is that many teachers have not had the opportunity to truly deconstruct, unpack, and understand their standards. Let's take the opportunity today to deconstruct, unpack, and deeply understand our standards for this unit. The fact is, in order to implement curriculum, instruction, and assessments that are accurately aligned to state standards, teachers must have the tools to deeply understand the standards. The tools that help us achieve this are our IFD and Content Builder documents, as well as using our PLC team as a resource to have some rich discussion about the standards and the instructional implications they hold. We use PLC discussions to discuss student learning and how it is to align with the state standards. It is a time of learning and sharing. Please pause the video at this time to discuss these tools as well as other tools you may use. Also discuss some criteria you can establish to ensure that instruction is aligned with state standards. We will begin by studying our Grade 5 heat map by standard. In Unit 3, our primary focus for reading is the study of expository text. First, review and study the expository SEs. We see that 511C, 511D, and E are our hotspots. Next, review and study the knowledge and skills statements that are assessed and dual-coded with our process standards, Figure 19. 511 is a readiness standard because it's green. However, on the last 3 STAR assessments, it has not been assessed. But since it is a readiness standard, it could be assessed in the future. Figure 19F is also a readiness standard. We know that on STAR, an expository text is always paired with another type of text, be it poetry or fiction, that share the same ideas or thematic link. So Figure 19F is also a hotspot. Therefore, our hotspots for this curriculum preview are 511, C, D, and E, and Figure 19F. In order for you to fully understand the standards, it is important that you understand the text structure. The strand for this standard is in the reading strand for expository text. Next, you have the knowledge and skills statement. And lastly, you have the SEs that are tied to the knowledge and skills statement. In reading, the knowledge and skill statement and the SEs are assessed. We teach it all. You will see that if we teach to the knowledge and skill statements deeply, the SEs fall in alignment as well. 511A is a readiness standard that is assessed, as is 511C and 511. Before we go to our SEs for 5.11, it is imperative that we read and deeply understand the knowledge and skill statement. So step 1 is always to analyze the knowledge and skill statement. Notice the different inferences students need to make. Also note on the IFD that this knowledge and skill statement may be assessed and dual-coded with Figure 19D and E because expository is a readiness standard. The IFD provides example questioning for you to consider as types of questions students should be asked to respond to. Please pause the video at this time to allow for a discussion of the following questions. What are the most important ideas in this knowledge and skill statement? What broad concepts will the students need to know to master the standard? Are these ideas being introduced or developed? And if so, where and in what context? And how are these ideas relevant to students? 5.11a, Student Expectation and Figure 19e. With your team, go ahead and study 5.11a and see how it directly relates to Figure 19e. 5.11c, Student Expectation. Analyze how the organizational pattern of a text influences the relationship among ideas. This is an assessed hotspot, and it is a readiness standard. Notice that the standard does not say identify the text structure. What would this look like in students' evidence of learning for analyzing text structure? Please pause the video at this time to allow for discussion of this question. At this time, turn to your IFD to the Knowledge and Skill Statement 5.11 to review 5.11 Knowledge and Skill Statement along with the SEs C, D, and E, as well as Figure 19F. For your PLC discussions, focus on the following questions for the Knowledge and Skill Statement and for each SE. What verb guides the cognitive levels of the student expectation? What is the content to be taught? That is, what are you explicitly teaching? And in what context are you teaching? Here it will be expository text in the context of the whole, part, and specific lines of the text. Discuss as a team the concepts and vocabulary students will need to understand in order to master the SE. Discuss and decide what other SEs in the various strands of ELA are. Can the standard be paired or bundled? What resources will be needed for students to master the student expectation? And what will the resources need to include? Discuss what information students will need to know in order to master the standard. For instance, with expository text, they will need to know that every paragraph has a main idea. Sometimes the main idea is stated in a topic sentence, and other times it is implied. They may also need information about text structure and the author's purpose, as other examples for you. What are the instructional implications of the verb? That is, describe what teachers should do in the classroom. What does instruction look like? And lastly, what are the assessment implications of the verb? What are some ways that you can informally and formally assess student mastery of the standard? Please pause the video at this time to allow for a deep analysis of the standards as you are now moving from knowledge to considering the application of the standards in relation to your instruction and student learning. Planning for expository text. Using your standards to plan for instructions. Now that you've studied your standards, your focus is clearly on what do we want students to learn. So establish your learning targets for students by writing them out. Choose a variety of high-interest expository text with different organizational patterns and rich text that will allow students to make complex inferences and draw conclusions about the text. Read and annotate the text prior to assigning to students. Are the main ideas in each paragraph stated or implied, or is there a good mixture of both? Does the topic and information allow for students to infer and analyze the text? Create text-dependent questions for students to answer collaboratively and independently. Establish purposes for reading that you will share with students. How will you help students establish their own purposes for reading? Consider how you will model the thinking you expect students to demonstrate independently. And lastly, consider how will students demonstrate their analysis of the expository text. What will be the evidences of learning? An example. If I were considering using this article, these are the questions I would ask myself before selecting this text. As I read the text, I would ask, does the article have various structures? Can I create text-dependent questions using the article that align with the standards? What will the students provide as evidences of learning? What strategies will I model for students to emulate? Can the students draw a conclusion based on the text? Are there multiple author's purposes in sections of the text? Is the author's purpose clear? Students will analyze, make inferences, and draw conclusions about expository text in order to understand the big ideas, supporting details, the author's various purposes, and the text structures in order to explain how ideas are connected. Students will probe each main idea in the text. Students will analyze paragraphs for sentences that support the big ideas. Students will effectively summarize portions of the text using main ideas and details. Students will effectively summarize the whole text using main ideas and details. Students will use text features and structures to understand and analyze the text. Students will generate their own questions about the text. Students will answer text-dependent questions and provide evidence from the text to support their understanding. Students will describe the text structures using text evidence. Students will distinguish facts from opinions in the text and explain why it is a fact within the context of an expository text. Students will determine the author's purpose of specific paragraphs within an expository text. Students will determine the author's purpose of the entire expository text and provide text evidence to support their understanding. As you study the remainder of your standards, you can add to the list of student learning targets and discuss the different ways students can demonstrate their learning and mastery of the standards. The Content Builder is a tool to use to organize your instruction. For reading, our process standards are Figure 19. Figure 19A, B, and C, and the use of a flexible range of active reading skills are the ways in which students will access the concepts and content. Students must be able to use comprehension skills in order to fully engage with a text. Likewise, students also demonstrate their learning through the process standards, Figure 19. Students' ability to make inferences, summarize text, and make connections within the text and between other texts on the same topic are ways students demonstrate their analysis of text. Please pause the video to discuss each readiness standard and ways your team can support their learning through scaffolding. The Content Builder tool can be used with each knowledge and skill statement and each SC to plan your daily lessons. Assessment for learning provides evidence of learning and student progress. Appropriate and different types of assessment are essential for informing students about their level of success in ways that affirm and stimulate their efforts, and for informing their teachers that more customized learning experiences may be provided in a timely way. Assessments are used to help us make instructional decisions based on student needs. Well-conceived and well-designed evidence for learning should also be used to reveal to parents, the school, the district, and society at large the extent to which the desired learning and mastery is occurring and what schools are doing to continuously improve. MIDR will take you far when you're reading informational text. This strategy for expository text is called MIDR, which is really just an acronym. MI stands for main idea, D stands for detail, and R stands for response. Students read an informational text closely, analyzing each paragraph of the main idea, the most important details, while monitoring their own comprehension. On the passage, you can see the routine and expectations that students establish their own purpose for reading by posing a question they expect to have answered. This will be their writing assignment after they have read the passage, where they will write an expository text explaining the answer to their question. Also, you can see the students' use of active reading and their own strategy as to how they decided to approach the text. Many strategies had been modeled, and students used strategies that work for them. For each paragraph, students write either the topic sentence as the main idea, or they paraphrase their own main idea when it is implied, and they place it here on the graphic organizer. Students then paraphrase and summarize the most important details in the text that support the main idea. Finally, reading is thinking, so we always want students to respond to what they are reading. This thinking should demonstrate their level of understanding. The student responses include inferences, their own questions, and active reading to demonstrate the understanding of the text. A second strategy I'd like to share with you is where you turn titles, headings, and subheadings into questions. This is a SIOP strategy. So the student will be able to turn headings and subheadings into key questions and then answer the questions after reading about the topic would be our learning objective. As a teacher delivers a lesson, it is critical that students have a purpose for reading so they see the path they are to follow. Questions provide students with a purpose. Guide students to look at the bold headings to predict the types of questions that may be asked about the information in the text. Model for the entire class and demonstrate how to turn the headings and subheadings in a text into questions. These questions become the focus and purpose for the subsequent reading. Students use the questions to monitor their comprehension, and students write the questions and answer them during and after reading. Integrating the language arts. Students should read, write, and discuss daily. Writing instruction is continuous, and students are to consistently draft about their learning, their reading, research, and etc. Culminating activities should include the integration of reading and writing, as they are reciprocal processes. After reading informational texts, allow students to authentically generate a research question they would like to investigate. Or students can write an expository text based on their initial question prior to the reading of the text. Students can then research further on the topic and begin a draft to explain or inform. Teachers can provide descriptive feedback for revising and editing and allow the student to carry that research writing through the full writing process. View this video as students and educators talk about the importance of reading comprehension. Notice how the students are reading, writing, and discussing.
I feel like comprehension is the holy grail of reading instruction.
The predictions help me to kind of expect what's going to happen next. The inferences make me aware of the characters.
It's not that other aspects of reading aren't challenging, and it's not as though there aren't, important areas of research to pursue in other aspects of reading, but really comprehension is what it's all about. It's what we're aiming for.
The connections help because if I'm connected to something, then it helps me learn more because I know about what I connected it to.
For the definition of comprehension, I just draw on the Rand Commission's report, where they call comprehension the process of simultaneously extracting and constructing meaning from text. And to me, comprehension is absolutely the goal of reading. It's why we all read.
Well, like it is. They don't sugarcoat anything. They have integrity, accuracy, and authenticity, and both use figurative language. The book that we are reading by Gary Paulson is nonfiction, but still has figurative language.
Where did you come up with all those great words?
Both right there. They're both honest, and their words can be proven, and they both use language that's figurative or literal.
You were able to prove everything that you said. You backed it up with some really strong details. Research suggests that teachers actually can make a really big difference in students' comprehension. They can do this by teaching comprehension strategies, which is something that's been shown over and over in research.
Maybe we make fun. We need this, but not this.
They can also make a difference for students by engaging students in discussion and writing and other opportunities to really construct meaning from text, share meaning with others, and sort of negotiate meaning in a social context.
Brain, all of you kiss your brain.
Finally, teachers make a big difference for students' comprehension when they build their knowledge base. Comprehension really relies on your having a lot of knowledge relevant to the text, and so the more that teachers can do to provide rich experiences and build knowledge for students, the better the students' comprehension development will go.
Some differences from the South that are here.
Remembers reasons why the African Americans moved from the South to the North. Okay, Giancarlo, go ahead.
They moved because they needed a better life because they didn't have money.
Okay, that's good. Better life. What do you mean by better life? Because that's a general term, right? Okay.
For a better job.
Okay, a better job. What was another reason? Go ahead.
The war had doubled the cost of food and made life harder for the poor.
Okay.
The 3rd through 5th grade is an incredibly important time for comprehension development.
The river rises and rises until it floods before the modern dams were built.
It's certainly a time when the texts that students are reading become much more complex. The topics are often more abstract, less in the here and now. The nature of the language in the text becomes more written-like and less like the oral language that children are accustomed to.
Should we do this, the little part of the subtitle under the picture?
That's a great idea. Is it important? Is it interesting? Does it need to be included? Josephine?
I don't think so.
Why not?
Because it's not really about the topic, but it's about one single crisis.
So it's a detail
Yeah.
about one artifact.
The structure of the text becomes a lot more advanced, more sophisticated. Texts often include more features such as diagrams, tables, maps, charts, and so on in informational text, or more complex plot devices in narrative text. And for students who are encountering these for this first time, they pose a tremendous challenge. We have a lot of really interesting research on what good readers do when they read. With most of these studies, what we do is actually have good readers talk aloud or think aloud as they read. We observe them, we listen to what they say, and then we're able to know sort of what's going on in their head that allows them to comprehend so well. Study after study of this kind shows that good readers are extremely active when they're reading.
And let's think about what would cause Gary Paulson to stop trapping. That's what I want you to think about today. Before I begin, Anthony?
I have an inference that he stopped trapping because he wanted to go into dog races, and you usually get rewarded much more money than you would trapping.
Okay, what is leading you to infer that he's going to stop that for dog racing?
Because he has dogs, and he probably saw this flyer or something that he probably just saw reward, and then he said, dog racing, I have dogs, so why don't I just join?
They're really making meaning as they go. They're thinking constantly about what they're understanding, what they're not understanding. They're reacting to the text with opinions, with counterexamples, with connections to their own experiences. They're applying background knowledge like crazy. That comes up in study after study as such an important part of what good readers do when they read. They ask themselves questions as they read often. They are previewing, they're looking at text structure. They're just extraordinarily active.
What if the teacher makes her friends? What about the other kids don't be her friends?
Then that'll be okay.
But I think it's gonna be just like Raleigh's children. First she's gonna have an enemy, then she's gonna have a friend. So she want her mom to come to school. She's just gonna want her brother to come to school with her every day.
And what happens if her brother gonna go without her?
She could go with her dad.
But maybe his dad works. Yeah, what if her dad's not around?
I got a question that we might find in the book later, but could I ask it now?
Sure.
Does the dad have a job?
You never know. You don't know yet.
He's in the factory, because she might be an immigrant.
When I contrast that with some of the struggling readers we work with, I mean, it's really stark. We'll have students who just open up the text and immediately start reading, not thinking about why they're reading, not previewing the text, not thinking about what it might be about. Then as they read, it's just really trying to take in the very bare bones facts of the text without really processing it, without trying to integrate it with what else they know, without in any way questioning whether the text may be accurate. One of the most important things that teachers need to do to build students' comprehension is to teach comprehension strategies, to teach children to do those things that good readers do when they read.
I will share more of the video in PLCs to come, but as we've been talking about in all the other curriculum previews, it's the process of reading that's most important, and teachers can have a strong impact on student comprehension. At this time, discuss with your team the planning and delivery of the instruction of Unit 3. Discuss the types of text that will be used and the levels of thinking students will be expected to demonstrate. For reading, all levels of thinking should be used. Based on your previous discussions and your careful deconstructing, unpacking, and understanding of the standards, determine various instructional strategies you can use to model and facilitate student learning. Finally, discuss what types of evidences of learning will demonstrate that students have carefully analyzed the informational text. What are the different ways in which it should look? How should it sound? Please pause the video at this time to allow for discussion. Finally, before we close, I want to go back and review our learning targets. Can you use the standards to plan for instruction? Can you choose high-interest resources to plan for student learning with expository text? And can you plan for specific evidences of learning that are aligned with standards? And can you ensure that your curriculum, instruction, and assessments are aligned for students to master the standards? I appreciate you participating in the PLC curriculum preview to better understand the standards. If you have suggestions for future curriculum previews, I'd love to hear your ideas, and please feel free to submit them to me. Also, I would love to hear from you if you have an instructional strategy that you would like to showcase in upcoming videos. Please be sure to submit a copy of the PLC for the Reading PLC document to the appropriate campus designee. And until next time, goodbye.